right, so the roles of mothers, fathers, siblings, even sometimes like family members overall, differ from culture to culture. We all obviously all know that. Anything that stands out in your culture in terms of like, let's say, motherhood, fatherhood? Let's start with Robert.
Well, in our culture, the mother, the matriarch, is really the most important aspect of the culture. We say if you teach the mother or the woman, you teach a nation. And it's the truth, because without women, we would literally not exist. So the mother, the woman, is at the forefront in the sense of they're the highest, they have the highest honor and the highest regard. The male, the men, we're supposed to protect, provide, and lead. So in our culture, in Moorish culture and Native culture, we always have the highest regard for the divine woman, the female, the mother, the matriarch. That is the foundation of the nation. If the woman is out of whack, the nation is out of whack. And it's that simple.
That's plain and simple, right? It is kind of universal also, but also I think like when it comes to fatherhood, for example, that's probably more diversities and contrasts within different cultures. Anything stands out on your end in terms of motherhood and fatherhood?
I mean, it would basically be echoing what he just said, but what I like to do for just myself, my own personal experiments, is just looking at things at a very basic form, like in like a most natural form. For example, looking at like lions and lionesses, and how the lionesses are the ones that go out and hunt, and they also raise the cubs, while the lions just like protect the family and have, you know, multiple lionesses that they interbreed with. It's just an interesting dynamic, and I feel like that's reflected as well in just the natural, the essence of who we are as males and females and how we behave. I know the men like to think like they're the breadwinners, but really they're just like essentially like the protection, and the women really are the ones who nourish, literally with our bodies. We nourish children and bring them up, and yeah, we make sure they're protected and well fed and all of that, and the male is like has a supporting role and the physical like strength brings us the strength to the relationship, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's that part is pretty much universal. I think in many different cultures, where the mother, like you said, you know, it's everything. It's the real like essence of who we are, nourishing us, even like protecting us, but in different ways. And the father seems to, in a lot of cultures, seem to maybe like wander around a little bit more. Like you said, like the lions and the lioness, and we're basically animals also. We're just a different species, right? So a lot of those things apply to us also. But I find it interesting that amongst different cultures, it's represented in different ways. Like in the Haitian culture, I think it's again very similar to the Hispanic culture. The men tend to be a little bit more the macho type. You know, even though today, you know, in the modern world, men are a little bit more involved in fatherhood. I mean, at least that's what I'm seeing. Me as a relatively new father, I like to be as involved as possible, and also play the role of the mother sometimes, which is not, back then in Haiti, for example, that would not happen. Like you don't take care of kids that much.
It was strictly I'm here to provide.
Exactly, that's it. But here,
I'm doing enough. I'm doing my part.
Exactly.
I'm providing. I'm putting food on the table. I'm protecting. What else will we do?
Exactly. But also, it shows that how times and evolution, in a way, impacts culture, because culture is not as, especially in those specific areas, is not as strong as before. Where now it's a little bit more open. And I saw a documentary a couple years back called Babies, and it's basically a story, and there's no narration. It's not one word is spoken in that documentary. It's 4 babies in 4 different parts of the world. One is in Africa, one is in Asia, one is in the Western world represented by United States, and the last one I believe was in Japan, but I guess Eastern Asia. And showing you how the first year of the baby, the growth of the baby in their first year, how different it is from culture to culture, even from birth. You know, for example, I remember the African woman, they put like some oil and some red, something like red on their stomach, right? Right before birth, and there was no hospital, no doctors, no nothing. In contrast to the baby that was born in San Francisco, like a big hospital, like 5 doctors, nurses, like machines everywhere, and the baby's born the same way and as healthy as the African baby. But you see how the roles of mothers, fathers, siblings, grandparents impact the overall growth of the baby. So I thought that was super interesting. When I watched that, I was like, man, I never thought I could watch something for, I think it was an hour and 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something.
With no narration?
Not one word was spoken. And it's a beautiful story. It's very touching, and it's also an eye opener into the importance of culture. So I encourage you guys, and even to those watching the show, to watch that also. So what about you? Motherhood, fatherhood, family, all together in terms of your culture. What does it represent for you?
En mi cultura, como en todas las culturas, nuestros padres suelen ser como muy sobreprotectores. Y los primeros principios y valores están enseñados en la casa. Pero somos desde pequeños conectados a sistemas educativos, como escuelas, deportes, artes. Y así es la crianza en mi cultura.
Okay. All right, cool. So again, very, very, very similar. What about you, Patrick? Anything stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, for example, my dad, he was a lot stricter on me and my brother than he was on my sister. You know, and I didn't understand why, but over the years you understand that as men, we're a lot more irresponsible.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a fact.
Yeah, facts.
Fact. I mean, fact is a fact. So, sad to say, but true, right? And it was a lot older. So when, for example, my sister and I were like this. So if we talk about lying, we're very professional at that. So when my sister wanted to go out, we asked my mom. We just knew that my mom was gonna say, "Ask your dad."
Right.
It was like, oh my God. So we had to sit down and come up with a plan.
Right.
You know, and then we're like, okay, so my sister, so you go first, you the others, you go ask.
Right.
And then it goes like, yeah, Dad, can I go out? Oh, Patrick is coming with me too. As if like, okay, you can go, but as if like I was gonna, me going there, it's like thinking I'm probably gonna, but once we get to the party, we go like, bye.
Right.
Separate, you know? And that's the difference. For example, my mom was more kind of like, nurturing us, right? My dad was the one that's trying to put the tough skin on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so at the end, the balance between them was perfect.
Right.
The balance between them was perfect. But when I listen sometimes to my dad's story, I'm like, that's probably why he was so hard on us. Because he doesn't want us to repeat what he did. I was like, same thing with my grandpa, for example. When I first learned how to drive, so he'll go pick up my mom at work every afternoon. He'll ask me to drive. 17, yeah, I want to drive. So 17 years old, that's me driving. And then all of a sudden, I hear this noise behind. What are you doing? Put your. But then, like a few days later, to hear him telling us, grandparents like to tell stories at night. And when the parents drop us off, and then I'm hearing him story that my grandmother's saying that my grandpa used to race cars on 2 wheels. I'm like, hold up, what are you trying to do here? So it's the balance is very different. So sure, my grandmother, she's from Tahiti.
Right.
So, but she had the French and Tahitian. She always kept her culture very well. But then my grandpa was the one that was overprotected. He was very overprotected, but extremely serious.
Right.
But when I always thought my grandpa was always this serious guy because he was so strict.
Right.
Until I would hear a story of my grandmother say, "Did you know that every Monday your grandpa dad had to pick him up in jail every Monday because of fighting?" I was like, what? I was like, what? What are you talking really? I was like, yeah. I was like,
That's why they're so strict.
So that's why you're so strict.
They
Yeah.
know what you're capable of because what they used to do. So they don't, so you hit it right on the head.
That
It was the
makes sense.
complete opposite for me growing up. Like, whenever my female cousins, because I was younger, and like my 18, 20-year-old cousins would go out, and they'd be out past maybe 2 a.m., it would be such a big deal. The next day, there'd be a family meeting called where my uncle would have everybody there, including me, and I was like so young at that time. I'm like, what am I doing here? Just to like set an example and show like it's not okay for women to be out past 2 a.m. Meanwhile, my male cousins would be out all the time until like 6 in the morning because back home like parties go on like all night.
Turn up.
And they wouldn't have any family meetings called on them. So it's just kind of like the males, it was okay essentially for them to be out. They weren't worried about them. They thought they could take care of themselves. Nothing dangerous would happen to them. But with the women, it was kind of like a protective way.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
you need
that's
to know,
But
you
you were
even
more
if you go.
protected you from.
The hunters. After that night, you know. But having uncles is great because sometimes I'm closer to my uncle. I could tell them something versus my dad. You know. I remember there's one time I came home, it was 8 in the morning after a party because our car broke down. You know, and my uncle.
Your car
Allegedly.
Our car really broke down. You know? But my uncle knew that and he came. So, but he had already called my dad because they were looking for us. My dad was extremely pissed, right? So luckily, my uncles looked at my dad and was like, "Bro, you were young too, remember?" And then when I got home, we got everything kind of like cool, calmed down because sometimes our parents forget they were young.
Yeah, that's that. They don't want you to go through what they went through. They know what you're capable of from what they used to do. So they're
I
it's
don't.
just a shield.
Yeah, and I think it's more like, to Robert's point, I think it's more like they remember so well.
Right.
It's not like they don't remember. They remember so well that they don't want you to make the same mistakes.
Right.
You know, so it's part of like kind of like their protective way.
try
Absolutely.
to, like,
Protective mechanism.
Yeah.
lower down and we still
Exactly.
go with it, but we still have to go through it.
I do it right now with my children.
What about you, Christina? Explain a little bit the dynamics of motherhood and fatherhood in your household.
Yeah, it's pretty, universal, like the gender roles, like the mother's more nurturing and the father's there to protect, which is a good balance. But something that's different that I've noticed is like the affection in the families. Like the Asian culture, we don't show a lot of affection, although we know it's there.
Right.
But it was just so different because like my mom I've never seen my mom cry. So like during graduation or during like big events, it's like there's no emotion. It's like this.
Asian dads.
Asians are like that.
Yeah,
Asian dads.
we're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like there's no crying. It's just like this is part of life. Like good luck in college. Like we gave a hug and like it was just very like no emotions. But
Yeah, my dad was like, so the restaurant we're eating at,
Yeah.
is it
Graduated.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
So-
more about them showing strength, I think, is what it is.
I think it is. And
Because
it's-
I've never seen like my
What
I
I've
never
noticed
seen
is
my
like
dad.
support. Like they're always supportive, even though they're not emotional. They're always there for me. They're there for my big events. They're supportive, but it's just in a different way.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's interesting for me too. I mean, the way you show your love is gonna vary.
Right.
For me, it was not really a demonstration of love. It was more through actions and just being there in different ways. You feel it, so it's different. So I'm not used, but my kids are like, I tell them I love them like 10 times a day though, which is weird because I was never really told that growing up that much.
That's probably
right.
why.
Yes,
My
that's probably
kids-
because you were even thinking, why they never said I love you, but when you have your kids, you then not just to keep what they teach you, but to also change. Because there's certain things you may not like, then when you have your kids, you're gonna actually do it. You're gonna be a lot more affectionate because you didn't get that, but you want your kids to be.
Right.
That's so funny because me and my sister, I guess we're in the transition phase. So with me and her, we'll say "I love you too" to each other instead of saying like immediately like "I love you." Just
Hold on,
because-
what? You just start off by saying I love you
I
too?
love you too, like jokingly, and she'd be like, "I love you too." Yeah, we're just kind of like
Interesting.
adapting, transitioning
Get
into
it
that
out
whole
there.
"I love you" phase.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I mean, I don't like even with my brother and all kind of stuff. Whenever we come into like an I love you situation,
Yeah.
there's gonna be like tears or like weirdness going on. Like, yeah, it's too heavy. It's like, man, don't say that.
It's funny. It's just like
Yeah.
also.
You haven't told us. Yeah.
You know? It will.
Try I love you.
Try it.
Try it. Put it out there. It's gonna get weird. It's gonna get quiet.
Yeah.
It's just like
In Haiti, I mean, we speak French or we speak Creole,
Right.
but in so many ways, sometimes it's kind of weird when we speak in French to a guy. Because we tend to.
That's very interesting.
That's very interesting because we tend, when we speak French to the woman.
Right.
Because we're trying to, you know,
That's
always
true.
like, yo, what's up? And
Yeah.
we just go the slang
Right.
with the man, you know?
Right,
well,
right.
of course, when we talk to our uncles, we do speak French and we mix it with Creole and stuff.
Right.
But really, most men, like Jeff and I, you will mostly hear us speaking Creole.
Right.
Yeah, we'll almost never speak French.
Never always
Right.
French, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because
when
it's
it
more
comes-
respectful
Yeah.
if you speak French, you know. So when you speak to a woman, yeah.
But when it comes to women, even we're gonna speak Creole, but we address her in French first. Hey, c'est comment vas-tu? Jeff will be like, ça qu'a fait?
Yeah.
You can hear the difference. Ça qu'a fait? Comment vas-tu? And then we'll go to Creole, and then we'll still never go too far from Creole. We'll go back to French. But Jeff and I will just go Creole all the way up.
Wow.
Interesting. That's an
I
actually
don't know.
that.
I don't know why.
That's
I
a
don't know
good
where it's coming
segue to the next topic, which is cool facts. And that's actually a cool fact because it's true. Like growing up, you know, you speak French to your mom, your dad, or somebody older than you, or women. And you don't necessarily speak French to other men. I mean, in a professional setting, you do. You know what I mean? So, anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about cool facts in a little bit.